If you're thinking about moving to Kansas City, you're probably wondering what it's actually like to live here. So let's hear the answers from the people of Reddit. 350 people who actually live in Kansas City. These insights are from hundreds of locals, transplants, and even people who moved here and regretted it. So you get the real picture of life in KC, from housing, weather, nightlife, and more. The good, the bad, and the weird.
And if you're new here, we're Kat and Melanie of the 𝗪𝗏𝗃𝗃 Group Realtors, and we help people every day buy and sell real estate in the Kansas City metro. So if you have questions about living in KC that don't get answered in this video, just reach out to us and let's get started.
First, let's talk about one of the biggest reasons people move to Kansas City: housing costs. Compared to California, prices here feel unbelievable in a good way. A lot of people mention that for the price of a small apartment in LA or the Bay Area, they bought a full-sized house in Kansas City. And yes, while home prices are rising, it's still far more affordable than most major cities. One person who relocated from California said, "We moved from LA, and what we paid for a tiny 2-bedroom apartment got us a 5-bedroom house here. It's insane." But not everyone thinks KC is as cheap as people say. One longtime homeowner said, "I bought my house in Olathe for $200K back in 2007. It sold last year for $370,000. So yeah, prices are still way lower than California, but they're not as low as they used to be. So if you're thinking of moving here because it's cheap, know that it's not as cheap as it used to be, but you're still way better off here than on the coasts or other major metropolitan areas.
Next up, let's talk about what locals said are some of the best areas to live. If you're moving with kids or looking for the best schools, everyone pointed to Johnson County, Kansas. Blue Valley, Olathe, and Shawnee Mission schools are top-rated school districts, and Overland Park is one of the highest-rated cities in the county for families. But it's also one of the most expensive places to buy a home now. One person who just bought in the area said Overland Park is an amazing place to raise a family, but good luck finding a house under $400,000. On the Missouri side, Liberty, Parkville, and Lee Summit were mentioned a lot as great places to live. But the biggest debate in the comments, Kansas City public schools. Some people swore they had a great experience, while others said if you live in KC proper, you'll want to go private or charter. So if schools are a big factor for you, watch our full video where we talk about the best school districts in Kansas City, and of course, be sure to do your own research as well.
Now, if you're coming from a place like California, the weather will be your biggest adjustment. The craziest thing we've heard is a bunch of people mention having all 4 seasons in a single day. Someone said, "I've seen it be 70 degrees in the morning and snowing by the afternoon." That's not an exaggeration. Summer's hot and humid. There are a couple of weeks every year where it's 105 plus degrees, and the humidity makes it feel even worse, like you're walking through a sauna. And the winters here are cold. We're talking single-digit temperatures, ice storms, and a couple of decent snowfalls every year. But the real problem is ice. Locals said that when ice is in the forecast, change your plans because driving can get dangerous fast. The upside, fall is absolutely perfect, and May is one of the best months to be here. Kansas Cityans do not take beautiful weather for granted, and the spring and fall are very active times for locals in the area.
One thing almost everyone agrees on is Kansas City has a strong sense of community. People here are friendly, almost too friendly if you're coming from a big city. One local joked, if you stand still for too long, someone will start telling you their life story. And as two people who grew up here, we 100% agree. Football is basically a religion. Chiefs games shut the city down. If you don't watch football, game day is the best time to run errands because no one is out. And you'll even still hear the game as some grocery stores like Hy-Vee play the game over the speakers. And of course, Kansas City barbecue. People are passionate about their favorite spots. One local said, if a barbecue place looks like it should be shut down by the health department, it's probably amazing. Kansas City is also growing. There's been a huge push to expand the streetcar, bring in more events, and even build a new ballpark downtown. But some locals feel like KC is starting to lose its small town charm as more people move in.
Now, job-wise, KC has a mix of industries. There are a lot of blue-collar jobs, healthcare, engineering, and tech. Big companies like Garmin, Hallmark, and a new Panasonic battery plant in DeSoto. One thing people love, there's almost no traffic. What takes an hour in LA takes 20 minutes here. But when it comes to the cost of living, it's rising. Rent has gone up a lot in the last 5 years. And while it's still cheaper than California, some locals feel like KC isn't as affordable as it used to be. Real estate across KC appreciates 4% yearly on average. So the best way to combat this is to buy a home when you're financially ready. Then your payment is locked in and won't increase every year like rent does.
So let's talk about Kansas City's nightlife. One of the biggest questions people had is Kansas City fun? Well, it depends on what you're into. Kansas City has a surprisingly good bar and music scene. The Power and Light District is where you'll find the big bars and clubs, but locals say the best spots are in Westport, the Crossroads, and the River Market. There's also an insane craft brewery scene, so if you love beer, you'll never run out of places to try. And what about live music? KC holds its own. The T-Mobile Center, Starlight Theater, and Azura Amphitheater bring in big acts. Plus, there's a huge jazz and indie music scene. But the nightlife here isn't for everyone. Some locals said KC's bar scene is fun in your 20s, but repetitive in your 30s. It's not New York or LA, things shut down earlier, and it's not as fast-paced. So if you love concerts, sports, and a solid bar scene, KC has plenty to offer. But if you're used to LA or Vegas nightlife, you might find it a little slow.
If there's one thing that locals can agree on, it's the fact that Kansas City is a driving city. Unlike Chicago or New York, public transit is limited. The KC streetcar is currently expanding, but at this moment, it only covers downtown. Outside of that, you'll pretty much need a car. The good news, traffic is almost non-existent. One local said, I used to spend 2 hours commuting in LA. Now I can get anywhere in 20 minutes. And parking is easy compared to bigger cities. And even downtown, it's not impossible to find a spot. But if you're hoping for walkability, it depends on where you live. Neighborhoods like Brookside, River Market, and parts of Overland Park are now more walkable, but most of KC is suburban, meaning you'll be driving pretty much everywhere. So if you're moving from a big city where you relied on public transit, be prepared to drive.
So after reading through hundreds of comments, here are some of the things people wish they knew before moving to Kansas City. First, I wasn't ready for the extreme weather. From 100-degree summers to freezing ice storms, Kansas City weather is pretty wild. Next, it's not as cheap as people think. Yes, it's way more affordable than the coastal cities, but KC isn't as dirt cheap as it used to be. Housing prices have jumped in the last 5 years. Also, the job market is good, but not amazing. There are plenty of jobs, but it's not a major tech or finance hub. If you work remotely, you'll be fine. Otherwise, make sure your industry is strong here or secure a job before you move. People who move here also say that you'll find your people, but it takes effort. Kansas City is friendly, but many people have lived here forever and already have their friend groups. If you're new, getting plugged into a community might take some effort. Some tips are to join Facebook groups, meetup apps, and getting active in your school, church, or other social events. And the last consensus is that Kansas City barbecue really is that good. If you move here and say Texas or Carolina barbecue is better, prepare for an argument. So let's summarize some of the pros and cons that locals have said about living in Kansas City. Some of the pros include affordable housing, especially compared to the coast, a strong community and friendly people. And there's tons of things to do, including sports, arts, and the food scene. Also, there's great schools in certain areas. And lastly, traffic is almost non-existent.
Now, some of the cons are there is some unpredictable weather here, so you see a lot of big thunderstorms, tornadoes. Public transit is improving, but still limited. Crime can be an issue in some areas. The food scene here isn't as diverse as you may see in some larger cities, and the job market isn't as strong as some other metros. One of the most interesting comments someone said is Kansas City is a great place to raise a family, but if you're single and looking for a fast-paced lifestyle, you might want to look elsewhere.
So, is Kansas City right for you? It really depends on what you're looking for. If you want a slower pace of life, great schools, and affordable housing, it's a great choice. But if you're expecting California's weather, diversity, and job market, it might be a tough adjustment.
Either way, we'd love to help you make the move. If you're thinking about relocating to KC, reach out to us and let us know in the comments what surprised you most about life in Kansas City.
And thanks again for watching. Subscribe for new weekly videos about life and real estate in Kansas City. We're Kat and Melanie of the 𝗪𝗵𝗵𝗘𝗢 Group Realtors, and remember, there's no place like home here in Kansas City.